What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to episode 3, the final part in the Noisy Gob saga. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I first came across this story, I did have a scan through, as I always do, across the entire story, just to make sure it was good enough for you guys and that it was worthy of being a saga on the channel. And I came to the conclusion that it was. However, I knew that when we got to this part of the story, it was going to get extremely tragic, and I wasn't 100% sure about bringing this to you, but I decided I would, and it's important to round off the story. So I will give you a warning that this episode is not going to be like the previous two. It's tragic, it's extremely sad, so I just wanted to let you know before we get into it. But without further ado, here is the third and final part of the Noisy Gob saga. Okay, so on the 21st of January 2020, we got this. Hi, this is Mark, OP's wife. The idiot asked me to apologize to the internet for his silence. He was hurt in a car accident on the 7th of January. We're sure he's going to make a full recovery, but he won't be online for a while. I said, it's just Reddit, but he's an obsessive lunatic about not letting people down, so I promised I would add Reddit to the list. So, here I am telling all the people that he doesn't know why he hasn't finished telling them something they're probably not reading anyway. Then, on the 3rd of February, a couple of weeks later, we got this. Hi, Mark's wife again. There were over 200 direct messages. Thank you all for your comments and for wishing him well. I've read them all to him. I'm going to answer the 3 most common questions. Number 1, what happened to Mark? He was stationary in his car in a queue to leave the motorway when a large lorry drove straight into the back of him. His car was crushed between that lorry and the lorry in front of Mark. He has several broken bones: nose and left orbital and cheekbone, left radius and ulnar, forearm, 4 bones in his left hand, right tibia and fibula, lower leg, 4 ribs, one of which punctured his left lung. There is some damage to the central vision of his left eye, which we hope is temporary. He has some damage to the tendons in his right hand, which need more surgery. Lots of cuts. A total of 112 stitches. He looks like a mess, but there is a chance that he might recover without any permanent damage. If it was me, I wouldn't cope, but he has always been as tough as nails for as long as I've known him. When I first got to the hospital and he was lying there, covered in blood and wires and tubes, and he couldn't speak properly, I went to pieces. He had me laughing within minutes. He's always been good at knowing the right thing to say. The thing that is bothering him most right now is not being able to use his hands. Number 2, when will he update the story? Well, it could be a while. I could ask the friend he has, called David, for an update, but I definitely can't tell a story like Mark can. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think Mark is the funniest man I've ever met. When he and David get started, I laugh so much I can hardly breathe. For now, I've told him to forget about everything except getting well. But if it starts to bother him, I've told him I'll do some secretary roleplay and he can dictate the story to me. I know he will finish it. He always finishes what he starts. I wish I had a 10th of his self-discipline. And 3, a few have asked if they can send him cards or gifts or money to help with medical bills or lost earnings. Thank you so much for offering, but it's not necessary. We're in the UK, so thankfully healthcare is free. He doesn't want anyone's money. If anyone feels the need to do something, there's a charity that we've supported for a long time called Macmillan Cancer Support. You can donate at the Macmillan website. They're always grateful for any amount, big or small. Okay, so pretty terrible news about Mark being in hospital. Mark is OP, the person who is writing this story, by the way, and I'm pretty devastated to say that this story actually gets a lot worse from now on. Maybe you guys picked this up from my tone at the end of the last episode, or you knew this was going to happen after update 10, but yeah, very sadly, the next post is tragic. Okay, now moving forward to the 22nd of May 2020. This username, u/mostlygruntled, belonged to my husband Mark. He wrote the story about his friend David and a business owner he called Noisy Gob. Mark had been updating the story until he was involved in a car accident in January. At that time, he asked me to let everyone know that he was injured and that he would update the story when he had recovered. Unfortunately, just over a week after my last comment, Mark passed away. Everyone thought he was recovering, but without warning, he suddenly became unconscious and died very quickly. The staff tried everything they could to save him, but he had suffered a ruptured aorta. They said it had probably been damaged during the accident and isn't uncommon in car crashes. I'm sorry I didn't update this sooner, but to be honest, I completely forgot about this website. It was only when I came back to read Mark's words again that I saw how many people were waiting for Mark to finish the story. I don't know how many people will see this update, but if you know anyone who was waiting for Mark to reply, would you please pass this news to them? Thank you. Thank you to the hundreds of people who left get well messages for Mark. I'm so sorry that I ignored you all for so long, but I've been dazed for the last 3 months. Mark would most definitely have disapproved of my leaving everyone in limbo and would have told me off. Also, many thanks to the people who made donations to Macmillan Cancer Support, although it seems strange to see money donated in the name of mostly Gruntled. And finally, thank you to the moderators for helping me by explaining how I could inform everyone. Wow, absolutely devastating news. And 2 days later, Mark's wife added, I can't thank you all enough for the lovely words and virtual hugs that I've seen over the last day. I've cried for hours. It's hard to explain what good crying is when you lose someone. Anyone who's lost a loved one will probably understand. Because of your posts and messages, most of the day has been good crying. Your words have made me think about all of Mark's wonderful qualities and all the reasons I loved him so much. I started writing the update and then abandoned it about 8 times before finally finding some bravery, and I'm so glad I did it. Thank you again to the moderators for the last little push I needed. It's also made me realise that I want to do one more thing that Mark would have wanted. He always finished what he started. I'm going to speak to his friends and find out what has happened. I know some of it already, but I'll try to get myself up to date with everyone's outcomes. I warn you in advance, it will not be like Mark's writing, it will just be the facts. I haven't got an ounce of Mark's flair for telling a story, but it's obvious from the comments that a lot of people were waiting for a conclusion. The plain facts will have to do. Please, be forgiving. I'm going to speak to the person he called David, who has been an absolute rock for me this year. Hopefully, he'll be able to tell me everything. I'll enter the update as soon as I can. Thank you all so much. You have no idea how much this has helped. Then the next day, Mark's wife added, Yesterday I was having a better day, mainly because of what you all wrote. Today, I woke up angry and I can't shake it. Today is a public holiday in England, and I keep thinking about what we'd be doing if Mark was here. He never wasted a holiday. I'm angry because I have lost the best person I've ever known in my life just because some selfish idiot couldn't wait to reply to a text message. I can't get over the stupidity and the unfairness. He'll go to prison, but only for a few years, and nothing will bring my Mark back. Sorry people, I just needed to vent. Please, 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 don't use your phone when you're driving, and don't tolerate it if you see others doing it. It's just brutal, isn't it? To lose somebody like that, in an accident like that is so easily avoidable. Someone that you would have been with for the rest of your life and who was the most amazing person, like your person, just gone. In a second, really, in one crazy incident just because a lorry driver was looking at their phone. It's insane sometimes how cruel life can be. And I think it's a good reminder, to be fair, for the majority of us, like how quickly this can all be over in literally the blink of an eye. Okay, next update came on the 3rd of June 2020. I would like to mention 2 things. Firstly, may I thank everyone who has made a comment. The beautiful things you have all said about Mark have lifted my spirits. I didn't imagine they would, which is why it took so long to inform you that Mark had passed away, but you did help. Even when what you said was so touching that I broke down, which I have done dozens of times reading the wonderful words. Secondly, may I apologise for not yet responding to every comment. On some days, I feel I could talk about Mark all day. On others, I can't even think about him without going to pieces. If I've not responded to your individual comment, it's not that I haven't read it, I've read all of them. It's just that I've been in a bad place some of the time and I can't reply. I'll eventually reply to everyone, just as I did, very slowly, with the cards at the time of his funeral and since. I didn't think I'd get through them all. It seemed that I was climbing a mountain that wouldn't stop growing, but I eventually replied to them all 322 of them. Finishing what I start is one of several good habits I caught from Mark. I just want to hear him call me Cariad again. Cered isn't my name, it's a Welsh word for love. Wow. 322 cards. That sounds insane. I mean, that just proves, not proves, but shows how loved Mark was. 322 cards. Goodness me. Okay, let's jump forward now to the 27th of July, 2020, 3:10 a.m. Wow, Mark's wife says. I haven't been online for a few days, and suddenly there are hundreds of messages. I can't sleep again, and it occurred to me that I could update what happened to each of the people Mark had written about. It's just the facts. It won't have Mark's humour or style, just plain information, but it's the best I can do, and it's better than nothing. Site manager. He started as planned in the new position on a building project for a distribution centre. Mark had already said what site manager and David were unhappy about. Being on a fixed 18-month contract as a self-employed person was a disadvantage compared to being an employee. But that was before Corona. After the virus hit, most of the employees were laid off. Some were furloughed, but because of the contract, the company had to keep paying the site manager in full. What he thought was a bad thing turned out to be his saviour. Noisy Gob. The last that David could tell me about Noisy Gob was that he has been forced to divest his share of the business, so he no longer owns a third. He had to sign a personal liability agreement regarding his assets in the event of total liabilities being greater than the value of the company. The way I understand that is that if, for example, the total bills for Noisy Gob's mistakes are more than the company can pay, then Noisy Gob must pay for the extra, even if that means he loses his house. He had to give up his share of the business because they couldn't keep trading if he was involved. He needs them to keep going to pay the lawyers. He hasn't been charged with a crime yet, but now it's certain that he will. They take a long time investigating and preparing before they charge him. Something to do with needing to be ready to go to court once he's charged. It also came to light that he had a warning for similar but much more minor damage to a listed building in 2011. David has been told that during the investigation, some irregularities were discovered by the local authority and were referred to HMRC, the taxman, and Noisy is also being investigated for VAT fraud. One of the earliest comments on Mark's story said, "expensive cup of coffee." That's an understatement if I've ever seen one. The big news was going to be about Noisy Gob and the SA/R word of one of the PAs in the ACC offices in 2017, and harassment of other staff too. The R word/assault did happen, but it wasn't Noisy Gob, it was a former finance director. Stories about harassment of female staff have not developed and turned out to be just rumour. Wow. Okay, moving on to David then, finally. Financially and work-wise, he is probably one of the few people who were not affected by COVID-19. Because he works on his own and has no social distancing issues, he's continued almost as usual. He said work is easier because, in his words, the usual plonkers are not there to trip on my equipment or stick plank ends into my finished work. Personally, David is not doing so well. Outside of family, David took Mark's death worse than anybody. He tries not to show it in front of me. When he's with me, he's a rock. He has saved me from myself. He's one of 3 people where I feel I can really let go about Mark. Or so I thought. I spoke to David's wife last week, and she was so sweet and sympathetic about it, but she had to tell me to hold back a little with David. He looks strong to me, but his wife says it's shattering him. I knew that him and Mark were good friends. She says he's taken Mark's death very badly. She says in all their marriage, she's only seen him cry once when their dog died. She didn't see him cry when his parents passed. She says he seems lost now and he's cried quite a few times. The worst thing to hear is that the time he cries is after he's been to see me. I feel terrible. It's obvious that he was grieving, but I didn't know I was putting so much on him. I'm going to be more careful and stop using him to vent all my pain. I wish she'd spoken sooner. Or maybe I should have been aware of it instead of being so selfishly focused on my own grief. Okay, that's a bit too much. I feel like there's no possible positive outcome from this. It's good that everyone is now aware of the situation though. Anyway, that's as much as I know about the updates. They're waiting to see what Noisy gets charged with. If he's guilty of damage to listed buildings, he might go to prison. If he's guilty of VAT fraud, he'll almost definitely go to prison. Either way, the fine will be 6 figures. David said he wondered if he'd like prison coffee. He's got an evil sense of humor. Okay, then a couple of hours later at 5:30 a.m, we got the following. When I came online earlier, there were notifications for 512 private messages and comments. I don't know where to start. If you've written, please, please, please don't think I'm ungrateful because I haven't replied. At 3:10 a.m, I felt able to write, so I did the update. Right now, I don't think I can do it. I've been looking at the video of our wedding. I thought it would make me feel better, but I feel like I've been knocked over by a bus. Mark's speech has crushed me. He talked about when we met and when he went back to the house he shared with other Royal Marines. One of them asked Mark, "What's the joke?" Then again, "You're grinning about something. Come on, what's so funny?" Mark said he couldn't and wouldn't explain it to them. He just couldn't stop smiling every time he thought about our date. He said he felt like that every time he thought about me. On our wedding day, it made me smile and brought a tear to my eyes, but this morning it broke me. I don't think the pain is getting easier. I think it's getting worse. I can't stand it. I feel it all through me and I can't stop it. All I can think lately is that if I can't have him back, I wish I'd been in the car with him. He was an atheist and he always said, "This is all you get, so don't dare waste any of it." So he wouldn't approve of me hurting myself, so I don't think I can. It's just so hard to carry on with this pain. I just want it to stop. I'm so sorry to carry on like this. I daren't say this to people I know because they worry, but writing here is like screaming into a diary. My apologies to everyone. I'll try and get a hold on things, but I miss him so much and I can't stop it hurting. I don't know what to do. Nos da cariad. And then finally, on the 31st of August 2020, we got one final update / post, I suppose, from Mark's wife. Since I last updated this submission, I've replied to quite a lot of messages. Hundreds, but I didn't get through them all. I can't read or see any more of the messages in chat, but the screen says I still have 92 waiting. If you didn't get an answer, you're in the 92. It was our anniversary yesterday, 30th of August. I was dreading it, but then when it came, it was sort of empathy. I watched our wedding video. I cried. I answered some messages. Halfway through one message, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that all the happiness I will ever have in my life has already happened and finished. Everything I try to do in the future is just going to be overwritten with, "Mark should be here, but he isn't." Everything from here until I die is just going to be existence, just breathing and watching the days pass. It seems so pointless without Mark. I don't know if I can write anymore. Thank you to everyone who offered their help. You are lovely people. Hold on to the people you love like you might lose them tomorrow. Don't do what I did and assume you can carry on in your own little heavenly bubble forever. Some careless idiot can snap out everything you love in the blink of an eye, leaving you with nothing ahead of you. Bye. Wow, not really too much I can add to that. I sort of said it as we were going through, but just, yeah, tragic. And a great reminder, I suppose, that life is so short and it can just change in a second. Just a horrible thing to go through. Like, I can't even imagine. And I'm sure there are people watching this, listening to this, that have gone through something similar, lost their partner, lost their husband, wife in a pretty sudden way, or even not in a sudden way. It doesn't really matter, does it? Just like, I can't think of anything worse than that. Don't really know what to say, but yeah, extremely sad. I hope you guys don't mind that I brought you the entirety of this story. I thought it was important. I couldn't just do the first two parts and then just leave it and act as if it was a happy ending, because it wasn't, and that is the truth. But yeah, pretty amazing that all those hundreds of people on Reddit got involved, got in contact with Mark's wife, offering support, and donated to charity as well. I will leave a link to Macmillan in the description of this video. So if you do want to donate in Mark's name, go ahead. It's pretty cool that people are donating and saying, "I'm donating on behalf of you / mostly gruntled." I can imagine the people at Macmillan are like, what the flip is mostly gruntled? But yeah, obviously that was Mark's Reddit username. And yeah, don't really know how to outro this one, but that is it. I hope you enjoyed, I suppose. I don't know. Not every story can have a happy ending, I suppose. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll leave it there, and I'll catch you on the next one.